Coming up, we're doing a full rundown on the current state of sprint car racing with SprintCar Unlimited's Jeremy Elliott. We're talking high limit, outlaws, who's the top driver right now, regional racing, gambling, and a whole lot more. Let's go. It's Monday, December 23rd. I'm Justin Fiedler. This is DIRTRACKR Daily presented by Kubota Genuine Parts. Maximize the lifespan of your Kubota equipment with Kubota Genuine Parts. Manufactured to the highest standards, their parts are a perfect fit and offer unparalleled performance. Whether you're farming, landscaping, doing heavy construction, using genuine parts means you're investing in reliability. Keep your equipment working as hard as you do. Go with Kubota Genuine Parts. You can find a full line of Kubota Genuine Parts at any one of the more than 1,000 dealers nationwide. Find a dealer in the My Kubota app or visit KubotaUSA.com. If you don't have the My Kubota app, you can find it in the Google Play or Apple App Stores. You can click the links below in the video description on YouTube or scan the QR code on your screen now. There is nobody that covers big-time sprint car racing in this country like Jeremy Elliott does, so who better to have on than him to talk all things national tours, drivers, and the state of the sport, so please enjoy. I guess we'll start off with Jeremy with congratulations, right? Media Member of the Year just announced by the Sprint Car Hall of Fame. I will say I would have voted for you. I didn't get to vote this year. I must have pissed them off last year, so I wasn't a part of the process, but if I had a vote, I would have voted for you as well, but congratulations.
You know, thank you very much, and thank you to everyone who voted. I was beginning to feel like Susan Lucci because I was told like 10 years ago or something. I don't know. You know, time just runs together that I was up for it, and it's an honor to win. I want to know more important. What'd you do to piss these guys off after 1 year? It took 1 year. Usually it takes me 2.
Yeah, I did not get the email this year, so no. Oh well, it's fine. I have a lot of just general sprint car things I want to talk about, kind of get your thoughts on it. I'm going to start first with the easy one. What do you like about sprint car racing right now?
What do I like? You know, you hit me with a hard one because, you know, some people say I don't like anything. But no, you know, this is going to sound dumb. I like 2 national series. I think it provides an avenue for people who can't do 80 to 90 races with the Outlaws. This is a 58 race schedule or whatever it is. It's in that range. It's like the All-Stars National. And I don't mean that in town. I just mean that with the size of the schedule. I like that. You know, some teams, it's the more, I hate to use the term affordable because they're going to the West Coast twice, but still, it's 30 less races on the schedule. And I think that, you know, and it gives them the freedom. It's just a different series. I know they've taken a lot of things from the Outlaws. So, you know, I like that. I like that some of the young guys, I mean, I was looking at the Outlaw roster with Garrett Williamson coming on board. He's 24. You know, their roster is pretty young. You know, you have Donnie, and you have, you know, the Bill Rose car, whoever he puts in it, but normally he's in it. It's a young roster. The champion, David Gravel's how old? He's in his 30s?
Yeah, early 30s, I think.
Yeah, so I like the roster. I like the youth movement. And I know we're going to probably get into the whole buying a ride thing, which is fine. But, you know, look at your young guys. You know, Brenham Crouch, you know, I did a 989 on him today. He's young. You have Garrett Williamson, who's young. There's other guys rumored who are going to run the national series. Emerson Axum is a young guy. Buddy Kofoid's still young. He feels like he's been around for 13 years, but he's young and he's winning races. So I think we have a lot of young talent that's going to provide a lot of exciting racing for years to come.
Okay, so then on the flip side, Mr. Curmudgeon, what don't you like about sprint car racing right now?
You know, you first gave me that moniker, and it is stuck. This is why you get booted off stuff.
I know.
No, but I've embraced it. No, and I will say I'm not a curmudgeon as much as I cover this sport like I covered the NFL. So if I don't like something, or I think it could be done better, I'm going to say it. What I don't like, obviously there is a big divide between this tire stuff, and I don't know why people can't get in the room in this sport, whether it's the rules, whether it's the tire stuff with Hoosier, what's good, what isn't, whether it's tracks, working, it's just working together. There Everybody's pulling in all these different directions. And when you're doing that, you can't advance things. I think there's a cap on this sport to begin with because it's niche. It's a niche sport. So why are you pulling in all directions? We have it in central Pennsylvania. It's terrible. Just scheduling over top of each other, different ways of doing things. I like the new rules that High Limit has out. I don't know why the Outlaws wouldn't embrace them. I know why, but I'm not, if you want to ask me, I'll tell you, but it's just people pulling in different directions, not getting on the same page and not doing what's best for the sport. It aggravates me.
Yeah. Looking at High Limit specifically, I'm going to do this for both national tours, but just thoughts of High Limit after year one. What'd they do right? What'd they do wrong? Just thoughts all the way around on their kind of first effort.
I gave them a B. I did this. I don't even know when I said it. At this point, there's so many different things, but I gave him a B, and that's good. I mean, in a first year offering, normally you're talking average is a C. So I gave him a B. I'll tell you what, I like the dash draw they do with the wheel and stuff. Do I need to hear David Gravel for the 45th time tell me how his season's going? I know how his season's going. I like the question. I like the fan engagement. I like their format. It's the old all-star format with a twist. So I like that. I think it's more, promotes more racing in the heat races. I think, I like, obviously their payouts are good. And I think now the bad things, I mean, obviously they still have these incidents that just pop up. And it's part of being a new series. Like we had the scale thing. I think it's attention to detail stuff. I think that bothers me. And I'll be honest, they don't exactly make it easy for the media all the time. When's the last time you got a press release from High Limit after a race? I have to search for it. Now you say, well, that's just a you thing. Well, no, because we pass that stuff along to the public. And again, it's an attention to detail thing. So I'd like to see that. And personnel, that's going to take time. They need more personnel. Obviously, I didn't beat them up too much. I thought the racing was good. I really liked the dice rolls. Fantastic. Again, fan interaction. You're giving money back. I think they needed to work on the schedule, and I think Brad did a good job with that heading into next year. I think we see more of what this series is going to be. I think there's still trial and error, but it was a good offering, and I just think they need to just be a little more attention to detail, and they got to figure the charter thing out by no later than May or June of this year. We're closing in on 2026. And it seems like, it's 12 months away. Yeah, let me tell you, that 12 months goes quick. And your driver, I know a lot of drivers to me are asking me, what is it? And it's kind of hard to answer, as you know.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, specifically about the charter situation and what you're hearing from teams. I know you've talked to Brad, quite a bit. It doesn't seem like we have a whole lot of information. And I feel like the longer that goes with that information, the kind of worse it gets for them. Do you feel that same way?
I think, and this is what I think is happening. I think they want to have it all worked out and then release it. But he did say not everything's going to be public. Here's the problem with that. One of the marching orders of High Limit is transparency. And when you say about transparency, you got to be more transparent than the Outlaws because that wasn't supposed issue. So you got to be more transparent, and people want it now. We live in a fast food society. We want to know stuff now. And as you know, that's why we're in the business we're in. High Limit's no different. And, I do know a couple teams who maybe thought of High Limit aren't doing it because they don't know what the charter is. And I'm not talking about 12th place cars. Okay. So that's a problem when I hear that from teams. And so they got to work that out. It's got to be done. And I agree with you. It doesn't seem, at least to the public, and high limit doesn't owe us. I'm not saying that, but look, it's a business, and people want to know, and teams want to know, and it just hasn't gotten a lot clearer.
Yeah. Um, I think two things that are interesting to me about the high limit format that just like weren't talking points all season was the seeded groups and the fact that if you finish in the top of the first night of a 2-night show, that you're basically just through qualifying for the second night. Like, I feel like those were kind of two cornerstones of their original format, and we just never talked about them all year. Like, it just never seemed like it was a thing. And the fans didn't talk about it. We didn't talk about it. Does that surprise you at all?
Yeah, because I talked about the seeded time trials. I thought that was a major step forward, because I hear it every time I go to an outlaw race. Oh, I'm at the end of the first group, and you know, they kind of call that the FU position. you know, so yeah, it's I think that's bigger than anything. The seeded groups, and it can be done. Look, we have SprintCarRatings.com. Bill does a fantastic job on that website, and it keeps getting better. I didn't think it could. Now he has like their career.
Mm-hmm.
It's just fabulous. And so I want to give him a plug for that, because I use it all the time. You know, it should be talked, and it should be done by the Outlaws. Plain and simple. It's okay to take something from your rival and do it if it makes your series better. And that was the big one. The four lock-ins, I'm not a big. I saw that for years, and while it's nice, it doesn't seem like they have enough 2-day shows like that it's just not as prevalent as it was back in the day when that was done. But the seeded time trials, I'm all for it for every track. So, uh, I don't think that gets enough play.
What do you think about the high limit roster year one, and then what we're seeing for the high limit roster going into year two? Obviously, we're going to lose some guys, but do you think it seemed like last year there was just so much momentum for high limit? It seems like that's kind of fallen off a little bit. They're going to have less cars, which is probably a good thing, honestly. Like, a 16 car field is probably not sustainable, but just what are your thoughts on roster as we go into year two?
I think we last year, and you're never going to get as much bang for your buck as you do the first year, because last year I remember sitting. I didn't get to PRI the last 2 years. I got to get there next year. But last year I was sitting at my desk most of PRI, waiting to release stuff, because there was just announcement after announcement of guys running high limit national tour. We didn't have that this year. So now some of that is it's not as big because it's not an inaugural season. So there's that. But look, you're losing the 83. I know that hasn't been released, but I've heard everything I've heard is that car will not be out of California, and you're losing James McFadden. And I think James McFadden is an underrated driver. I've always thought that. So you're losing a guy. Oh, by the way, here in the charter. So that charter goes away if that team doesn't come out. That is it just doesn't sit well so early in the game. I think you're going to have everybody else back who really puts a lot of butts in the seats, so to speak. I'm not trying to diminish anybody who finished 13th, 14th, 15th in points, but let's face it, this sport's built on stars. So they're gonna have most of those guys back, but I think losing, McFadden hurts a little bit. But they pick up Aaron Reitzel, and I think Aaron Reitzel's a big get. People can say they don't like him. You know what? That's the point.
Mm-hmm.
It feels something. People love to hate him, or they really, really like him. And you need guys to move the needle like that. And I think getting Aaron Reitzel kind of fills that void a little bit. So I think the roster is fine moving forward. I like what I see. I'd like to see one more big star. And I said that last year. And again, I think that goes back to the charter system. I think maybe if people knew more about it, maybe you'd flip one.
Yeah. Other side, Outlaws, a lot of new faces this year in terms of kind of behind the scenes people, new race director, new officials, things like that. But same thing. What'd you like from the Outlaws this year? What'd you dislike?
Look, it was status quo. The Outlaws are like a fine wine. It never diminishes. Their crowds were good. I know when they came into PA, they were good. When I went out and saw them other places, they were good. They still have top of the order guys. You know, when you look at their first 5, 6, 7 guys, I mean, think about it. You have Gravel, Macedo, Selzy, Kofoid, Schatz, Sheldon, and Logan Schuchart. Those are all big name guys. They're big hitters. And of course, so you like the roster right out of the gate. And it's a mixture of young. I mean, Kofoid this year, I don't think people know what they're watching. No offense to the fans. He's really, really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's going to move up in the order next year. I think he's going to be a handful. If he starts out the year better, he's going to contend for that title. So I like their future. And if those guys all stay there, the racing was good. And look, I know people complain about the format all the time. Watch their features. Watch their features, not just from the Grove, or watch them across the country. They're pretty entertaining. You know, their rules, I like some of the things High Limit did. I wish on the bad side, I wish they'd incorporate and be more open to new things. That's what I'd like them to do. Just be more open to new things. Dirt Vision, I still think, is the best streaming service as far as the product you see, but they also have the most resources, the most people. They have a studio back in Charlotte, all those things. So there's not a lot to dislike with the World of Outlaws at this point. The only thing I will say is I'd like to see their schedule maybe shaken up a little bit. I'd like to see something new. And part of that isn't their fault. It's me looking at High Limit, the shiny new toy, doing something different. And I want to see the Outlaws just do something different. I can't even tell you what it is. Going to Canada, they did it before. It's a little cumbersome for merchandise. So, and I talked to some guys, some like it, some don't. So I don't know. But look, that roster, and now they get Garrett Williamson, who I like a lot. Cole Macedo has earned his way there.
Mm-hmm.
He's performed on the national level in like 18 different cars. So I'm okay with that. And you might have one or two coming on board. And Chris Windham, we're going to see now. He's with Sides Motorsports. While it's not the 2 car, I hope he's there for 2 years, because it'll be the first time he has back-to-back years in the same car.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like, and tell me if you feel the same way, I found myself drawn this year to high limit races, and you kind of mentioned it there, but the kind of shiny new toy element of it, I find myself kind of, it was like, okay, well, the outlaw races are on, I'll catch those later. You know, the high limit races, maybe I'll drop in and see what's going on. And that surprised me a little bit, but I wonder if, you know, that will continue. And I'm curious if you felt that same way, like, were you drawn one way or the other? Did you find yourself watching one series over the other this last year?
That's tough for me because I got to watch everything. But I will tell you this: when I watched High Limit, I saw a different style of racing. I thought it was more on tilt. And if you take, now Carson was trying to catch up to David, and Buddy's obviously a more, aggressive slash, after it. Those high limit races, every lap they're getting after it. Somebody is, and I thought there was ratcheted up a little bit. So yes, I agree with you. I watched High Limit all the time and kind of turned to the Outlaws because I knew the product over there, what I was going to get. So do I think it's better? No, I'm not saying that. Yes, I was drawn to it more simply because it's a different style. I haven't necessarily seen it as much, and I wanted to see what was going to happen next.
Do you think, this is a point that I had been making for kind of a long time, is I always wondered if gravel had what it took to actually win a championship. And I almost wonder this year if Brad being away really even motivated him that much further to be like, okay, well, I'm the guy here now, like, and I need to go be the guy. Like, if I don't win a championship this year, it's going to look really bad for his legacy. But I'm wondering is gravel like the guy now? Is like, I know he won the most money, he wins the Outlaw Championship. We see a down year from Brad, and now we have a ton of questions going forward with Brad, with a new crew chief and all of this stuff. But Do you think David is now kind of the top guy in sprint car racing?
Yes. Yes, I do. And it's Brad, I don't think people understand like on a nightly basis, Brad Sweet does not run high limit. Okay. When he toes into the pit area, he doesn't even want to be bothered with stuff. Okay. He's racing. So everybody thinks he's making decisions on the fly. It's not what happens. I've been to him. I've watched it. Nobody comes up to him about that stuff. He doesn't get involved until after the races are over. So I think but look at his offseason. It's putting schedules together. He's having meetings during the season about that stuff. He's divided. His time is divided. And I think David has a great team, resources, and he's focused on one thing: winning the World of Outlaws title, winning races. Brad can say it doesn't matter that he's divided doing all these things, but he is. And let's face it, he has said that he is not going to be in it until he's 56, 55 years old. So yes, David Gravel is number one now, and everybody is chasing him.
Kind of along those same lines, I feel like I would like to see there being more talk about crew chiefs. We know about Cody Jacobs, we know about Ricky Warner, we know about some of these guys, but like outside of the top kind of couple of guys, I feel like you just don't see a lot of talk about, the contributions that these guys are making on a nightly basis. And I continue to say, I think Philip Dietz is one of the most underrated,
Yes.
guys in the pit area. But as you look around, you've been around a long time. You see these guys. Has there been a point in time where we've had a group of crew chiefs who are as good as the guys we have right now? And obviously Sweet's not going to have Prutzman this year, but him and Prutzman were on an incredible run. We've seen what Ricky has done, obviously with Shots, but now with Rico, Dietz and Cody Jacobs and all of these guys. Like, has there been a point in time where we've had a group of crew chiefs who is as deep as we have right now?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think the difference now is people didn't know about him in the past. I've always said this: the top got 5 or 6, 7 guys now are as good as the guys in the past, but the middle group from years ago was better than it is now, I think. So I think it was deeper before. You had more guys, and we could go through them. I mean, Davey Brown has been around, always been a top guy. Ricky Warner, Carl Kinzer. Remember, Ricky wasn't the best guy. Now he was young; he was learning under Carl. So you look at it that way. You had some guys in here. You had Dave Yingst, for instance. He was good. You had other guys in here. Barry Jackson, at the time, probably wasn't a top 5 guy. He was one of those middle guys. So not that he wasn't good, but I mean, again, going against Carl Kinzer.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was deeper before, because you still had Guy Forbrook in, when he had a car every week. You had, so many guys, even with the All-Stars. Fisher, who obviously, rest in peace, isn't here anymore. So, in Pennsylvania alone, you had Dave Yingst, you had the Browns, you had, oh God, just so many guys in there. You had Moon Byers, you had, Timmy Elwell. So I think it was deeper then. I think crew chiefs get more love now, or more of them do. It's just a media thing, social media, everything else.
Yeah. The regional stuff has obviously been a big topic here lately. All-Stars go away, the All-Stars come back, POWRi is expanding. We've seen Fast now make moves and all of this stuff. What do you think about this? Is this good for sprint car racing? I know it's been a topic both of us have talked about, but as you have talked to guys, especially around Pennsylvania and some other areas of the country, like what are you hearing and what do you think about kind of the current state of regional racing?
It's weird. I'm in the same camp. I don't know if people care.
Yeah.
Outside those regions.
Yeah.
Because I know you asked the question the one day, does anybody care?
Yeah, there's so much intrigue, but it's like you talk about it on the show and it just doesn't seem to land. But like there's so much stuff going on behind the scenes.
Here's what I like about the new All-Stars. I like that it's only 25 to 30 races. I think it fits nicely into that package because Fast obviously upped their game last year with no All-Stars. So I don't quite know where Power I fits in, which I'm going to find out today as we're taping this. I have Kenny Brown on the deep dive, so I'll be interested to find out more about that. Look, it's good. We need training ground. People forget Joey Saldana, Tyler Courtney, Aaron Reitzel, uh, all the guys from the Gum Out series, Darren Pittman, Jason Myers, all that. Those guys all developed at lower levels and moved on to be stars. So obviously, to me, a regional program is good and you need it because guys can't afford just to jump onto the national stage and to get their teeth kicked in, which can sometimes, depending who you are, you can do it and overcome it. Other guys can't and need to be nurtured a little more. So I like the regional. I like the direction it's going. I don't understand and this is probably going to make some people mad. I don't understand the big blow up about Ohio. I never knew it was that big of a region. It isn't Pennsylvania, and this isn't me being a homer. It's just not. Last year, I think they lost one big race. When it all shook out, you with no all-stars, they lost like one or two big races. It wasn't that bad. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not glad the all-stars are back. I think the schedule works. If he would have came out with a 50-some race schedule, I would have probably not liked it as much. But I think Farmer did a good job with that schedule. I like Ohio Speed Week, and I think it's definitely needed to develop guys for the National Series.
Do you think that, like, especially, the all-star situation in Ohio, can they put together a roster that's going to draw people every single night? And I feel like the onus is going to be on them a little bit more than Power Eye and Fast to be able to do that, especially with the flow streaming and all of that stuff behind it. But as you've talked to people, do you think they can make that happen?
Well, I had Farmer on the deep dive a couple weeks ago, and that was my question to him. And he sold me they're all champions. That's great, but I really question if they'll be able to do that because this sport's built on star power. And I can tell you, central Pennsylvania is a very elitist area, as you well know. And you're going to bring me guys who are track champions in Ohio who maybe never raced here before. They're going to get their teeth kicked in. I've heard rumors of Greg Wilson, running the series, and he never really did well in PA. So, and PA is a big market that you want to do well in. So, my question is too, are the Ohio fans, if there's a sanction fee, are the Ohio fans going to pay a higher gate price to come through the gate and watch guys they can run at Attica and Fremont every week? That is the concern for me. Farmer's done a great job, and he's doing what he can to put a good roster together, and I respect that. But we won't know till the end of the season. This is still an experiment to see if it's viable. That's my question mark. I just don't know how that's going to shake out. It's a concern of mine. But hey, I hope they prove it. I hope they prove that it can work, and we see it for years to come.
The All-Stars before were always able to draw some PA guys onto their roster. We saw Marks run it. We've seen, the Boo car is a PA car. Do you think there is a scenario where some of the PA guys go run, that full schedule or a sizable part of that schedule? Are they going to get Dietrich or some of these guys to go do that? Is there enough incentive, or do you think those guys are just going to stay and run their regular schedules in PA every week?
I know one guy, but I can't say it yet. But no, I don't think you're going to, like, Dietrich's going to go run Ohio Speed Week probably. You might have one more, and I think you could see a guy run the series, but it's going to be much like before. There's just too much money here. Why would you travel to Ohio to run for $5,000 when you can go to the Grove and run for $6,000?
Mm-hmm.
Or you can go to Port Royal and run for whatever. We have 40 races in this area that are $10,000 to win or more, and 26 of them aren't sanctioned. So I don't know why you would do it, and I don't think our teams are really. I mean, you might have Jacob Allen do it. I know he put something out today about clearing up his schedule for 2025. He was going to announce some stuff, what they're going to do. I could see Jacob doing it. I mean, which I think would be like if the All Stars could land Jacob for those 25 races, I think that would be good. People like Jacob. How can you not like
Yeah,
Jacob?
who doesn't like him? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and he's gotten better. I see the progress. So, yeah, I mean, if they could land a guy like that, that would help. But other than that, I don't see PA guys going out there other than Dietrich going out for Ohio Speed.
Yeah. Um, Interesting off season, some of the silly season stuff, drivers, swapping rides and things like that. Nothing super major this year. We don't have any of the big players, make changes. But as you look around at some of the stuff that we've seen come out and some things that we know are still coming, are you surprised by any of the stuff that you saw this year?
Yeah, I'm surprised Justin Peck isn't in the 5.
That's fair.
That, I mean, I think you were surprised at Justin Peck. I think everybody was surprised because
that was what we were hearing the whole time.
Yeah. Well, I even talked to him a couple weeks beforehand and was waiting to do the interview and kind of going through that, and then all of a sudden it was an about face. So that's the biggest one. I mean, I get it, I understand it, but I don't think there was anything that really shocked me. Kyle Reinhardt stepping out of the seat. I know it's not the sexy national thing, but Kyle Reinhardt, I remember when he moved from New Jersey to Central Pennsylvania to cut his teeth, to up his career, to get more experience. But hey, I credit him for looking at his job at Capital Renegade and saying, you know what, I need to focus on that. So that was, I really liked seeing that, even though I like Kyle and I hate seeing him out of the seat. But so no, not really. There was nothing that really shocked me. I'm shocked Chase Randall hasn't announced anything yet. It's not so much, it's more what didn't happen. Now I do have I think I know where he's going to go, but that not being announced and it's almost December 25th, that kind of surprises me.
I know you kind of have like a theory about the off-season stuff and if things aren't done by a certain date, but for those of us, for those of the people watching this, the way silly season plays out, like, how do you feel like, what are those cutoff dates where it's like, if things aren't happening by now, like walk me through your like theory on all of the silly season stuff.
Well, first off, it comes down to ordering. I mean, I've been around long enough. We keep saying that.
That's because you're old, Jeremy.
Yeah, I know. I feel old. But when I hear stuff like you got to start ordering stuff Knoxville or earlier, you got to know who's going to be in your car, okay? Because different drivers like different components, and if you guys get locked into what they like, and there's a lot of drivers like that, and it's been documented. So that's one problem. That's the first thing. Here's the other thing that I've noticed. Guys who run at the end of the year with their new teams, like say at Charlotte, seem to do better the following year. So it's getting those critical laps. Those are two things that jump off the page. And here's the other thing. Like, I've talked to drivers who are sitting around now. They don't know what they're going to do. And then they end up settling. And then it's a bad situation. And then it doesn't work. And then they're out of a ride again next year. It's those three things that you just got to have. The off season's getting shorter and shorter. And depending when Christmas falls, do they go to Australia? All those other things. And it makes it difficult if you do not have things in order by now. And I think owners who wait until December, I don't know what you're thinking. I don't think it's a recipe for success, because I think you need to have your ducks in a row. I talked to Ty Wolfgang, and he was building cars before Charlotte to have it done, to get it. Now he's eager too. Look, he's new, but still a young guy like that who knows you got to have things together. Look, Brad's going to Australia. So Ty wants to have everything, together. That's the winning teams. That's what they do. And I think you need to follow that. And it's getting earlier and earlier.
Yeah. I had posted about this on Facebook and we've seen, like, we have these off-season events now in other parts of dirt racing, right? You've got the Dome for late models. We've got Chili Bowl. We're to a point where, like, the off-season for some of those other divisions is basically non-existent. Do you think sprint car racing needs or should have some sort of off-season, December, January, go to Arizona type situation? Or do you think it's good that we have this break and that guys can go do the Australia thing if they want to, or take time off? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I did a 90 at 9 on this because I, I look, I'm not a fan of the Chili Bowl. Everybody in the planet knows this. I'm not a big midget guy. But that being said, do they make money? Yep. Is it well attended? Yep. Is there a lot of interest? Yes. Gateway, a lot of interest? Yes. Drama, probably more than you can put in that building. So I feel if we're going to have something, now's the time. Now, there's a lot of logistics. Where do you put it? You can't put it on the West Coast because we did that and it didn't work. If it was making money, we'd still have it.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, you got to try and have it at a place, maybe indoors, but there's a safety issue. Maybe, in Texas, it's about 60 degrees during the day, maybe 40, 50 at night. You might be able to get away with it and try it, but you got to give guys the incentive. I would like to see it. I want to see it outdoors in a place where it might be able to work. But it would have to be down south somewhere, and you're going to have to put up a good purse. You're going to have to give guys incentive to come and have a one-off in the off season. So I want to see it selfishly. Do we need it? No, but it would sure be nice to have kind of piggyback and have that one event that the late models and the midgets have.
Do you think it's ever possible that we see a 410 sprint car race indoors before? I did a daily show about it last year when they did it in Tampa years ago, and it was a disaster. But
Yeah.
do you think there is a scenario where that could happen?
No, I think there's so many safety issues with that. And people are like, well, they have the late models there. Well, yeah, they're not flipping up into the crowd. I don't think you realize that it's a different kind of car. Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of logistical problems with that. That's why I say it has to be outdoors. I think they learned that after that event, and that's a big place. I've been there, and not for racing. So, yeah, no, just no. Don't do it. I don't, no. Just go to outside. If it snows or it's too cold, then you cancel. It's just do it.
As a guy who's been known to place a sports wager here or there, what are your thoughts on the gambling stuff? High Limits announced it. USAC has already been doing it. We're assuming it's coming from World Racing Group for the Outlaws and their series. But where do you stand on all of that stuff?
It's a wait and see for me. I love gambling. I'm not gonna. I wager every Sunday and Thursdays and some Saturdays.
Some Saturdays, sometimes Mondays.
Yeah, Mondays too. Now I don't have a problem. I know it sounds it's not where all this.
You're gonna lose your house, Jeremy.
Well, I'm in an apartment, so
well, there you go.
Maybe that's why I'm in an apartment. No, I'm very shrewd with my gambling, but I think it's good, but I question because here's what it's through all sports data. And it's not like it's on DraftKings or if it's on FanDuel or BetMGM, which I use. And here's the problem: the states. How many states is it in? So, and I'm doing a lot of research on this behind the scenes. There's things like draft. You do the dirt draft. Okay, you pick a team and whatever. Successful sports gambling is me against you, the favorites minus 110, the underdogs plus 110, and it's 1-against-1. Prop bets. If you're doing where you're doing these lineups, it's not as enticing to regular people. Basically, a fantasy bet. And I don't know if that's enough to make a dent. Look, they're trying it. They're in the beginning stages of it. I just don't know if it can get in enough states to where it's going to matter. I couldn't make a bet in Pennsylvania on USAC. And I can bet on every other sport of the major sports on BetMGM in the state of Pennsylvania. I looked up the Underdog Sports app, which I'm not sure if that's what USAC's on. I got to check, but I downloaded it. The sports book's only live in North Carolina.
Mm.
The fantasy part of it's alive in like 40 states. So that's the rub on it. For it to really make a dent, you're going to have to get with one of the majors. And to do that, you have to prove yourself at the lower level and that there's an interest. And my question again is niche sport. Can it do that? Not saying it can't, not saying it can't be huge. But here's the other caveat to it. You know, the NFL, I know, has security people stationed all over the league to monitor this and all over the place. Sprint car racing can't get tech right. How are we going to police this? So I know there's going to be a lot of, I've talked to Brad Sweet. I have an interview on my tape recorder, but I need more information before I write about it. I'm not going to write about it before I talk to people in the gambling houses. And my concern is if it gets in enough states, then it becomes the policing of it. I know there's going to be language in the contracts for these drivers, but you know what? There's language in the NFL contracts for players, and guess what? They violated. Ask Calvin Ridley. So there you go. It's just, I have some concerns. I think it's great. Nobody wants to place a bet on it more than me. So, but I just don't know if it can get to the point to make a dent.
The interesting thing, and I talked about this on my show, but Kevin Miller at USAC admitted they're not making money off of gambling and pointed towards it being a fan engagement thing. And if that same thing is going to be true of High Limit and the World of Outlaws, is it enough to like break even on this thing or maybe lose a little bit of money for that engagement part? Can they monetize that engagement?
Well, that's always the $1 million question. You know, and look, you and I went round and round about streaming a few times on personal calls, and I hear this word exposure. Well, I can't pay my rent with exposure. I can't pay my bills with enhancement. Okay, it's got to be dollars and cents. To me, whether we like it or don't like it, it comes down to dollars and cents. It's a business. And while you want to do, look, I do things for SprintCarUnlimited's.com just to get the word out, which I guess you could say is enhancement. Can it be measured? Sometimes. I just hate the words exposure and enhancement and things like that, because that's what we say when we don't have a firm number and we're grasping at straws. It's got to make it. It's got to be dollars and cents. You've got to be able to track it. It was a concern. I saw your show on that, and that was a big concern to me. Now, all fairness, is USAC the World of Outlaws or High Limit? No. It's very central Midwest stuff in Indiana. But still, it is a microcosm of everything, and I have some concerns about that. So yes, you know, it's I don't know. I don't know if it can or can't.
The rosters and stuff for High Limit, for the Outlaws, all of this stuff, there's still a few names kind of floating around out there of some guys that are potentials. As you look around the country, what drivers that have never run a national tour before would you like to see out there? You know, is it Anthony Macri? Is it a Justin Sanders? Like, well, what names would you like to see take a shot at one of these deals?
Look, Anthony Macri has to be the biggest one. I mean, I'd hate to lose him in Central PA because I think he's a draw. I think he's exciting and whatnot. So yeah, Anthony Macri jumps to the top of the list because I just want to see what he can do, where he would finish. High Limit, because he has a High Limit win at 34 Raceway, I believe. So if my memory serves me right. But so yeah, he's a guy. Justin Sanders, it's funny, I hear this a lot. Justin does really well on the West Coast. He has a business out there. Would I love to see him out on a national tour in a really good car? Yes. But I also understand why he doesn't. I understand why Anthony Macri doesn't. You know, sponsors back here, all that other stuff. So those would be the two. Emerson Axsom's interesting, but I want to see Emerson Axsom run the same schedule next year as he did this year, because I think he needs more seasoning, and I want to see I did something on Brenham Crouch today on the 989, which is Friday, and I don't think he should run a national series. Learn to race, not be thrown in. Not everybody's Buddy Kofoid. Not everybody's Kyle Larson, Rico, Salzi. Some guys need to be nurtured. And there are a lot of guys now who I think who are young who could be good, but I think they need to be brought along the right way. And I think that's the most impressive part about Emerson Axsom, the way they did it last year. And we're all talking about them all year. So I want to see that again and then go National Series racing. So Axsom's 1 in 2 years I'd like to see. Justin Sanders anytime. I think Justin Sanders is really good. It's just, he's got a lot going on in California that's behind the scenes. And Anthony Macri, of course, I think everybody would like to see him run a national series.
You talk about Crouch there. Do you think that there is like damage like that can be done with these guys going and running these tours too early? Like, you get the confidence too low? Like, how do you view those situations, when we talk about those young guys kind of making those moves too quickly?
I think it's on a case-by-case basis. And I don't think everybody's created equal. Sorry. Brenham, I've seen some good things from Brenham, but boy, was he thrown to the wolves last year. You're not doing any good going out there and not qualifying. I just think it was too much of a jump too quick, especially since it was only his second year in a 410 sprint car. It's different if you're running, before Kofoy went with the Outlaws, he had 100, however many starts in a 410 sprint car out in California, or a 360. And then in the Midwest with Neumeister, and then with Bernie. That's what I mean. He was, he's super, and he's one of the most talented guys I've ever seen as a teenager. So I think it's on a case-by-case basis, and I think you can watch and see. Look at the results. Look at how many cars they pass, how many times they make the A main, all those things. And I cringe because I think there are guys who have been thrown to the wolves over the years who maybe could have been better if they would have just took their time. I thought Lucas Wolf went out too early. Way back in the 2000s, the earlier 2000s. And I like Lucas a lot, but I mean, if he maybe waited 2 more years, maybe he's still out there. Maybe he has a big ride. Again, I think it's on a case-by-case basis. There's some guys who can do it, and there's some guys who need more nurturing.
We talk about Brenham too, and I know you mentioned earlier about the kind of rent-a-ride situation.
Yep.
I feel like we're at a point where there are like maybe only a handful of rides that are going to just outright hire a guy. Like, for most things, a driver is going to have to bring something to the deal. I at a much younger version of myself, hated this. I have come to learn, especially after working in racing for as long as I have, and understanding the economics and seeing friends get fired and laid off from deals. Like, I don't care about this at all. It doesn't bother me one bit that a guy is going to write a check. And we're at this time of year with the Chili Bowl where everybody pisses and moans just all over the place about the kids buying rides to go race at the Chili Bowl. But like, especially with the Chili Bowl, the way people look at it is if I can go spend, $10,000 or $15,000, get my kid in a car, maybe he gets noticed and maybe that moves it on. Like, there is obviously a reason why that economy exists, but where do you stand on the rent-a-ride stuff? Does it bother you? Do you care? It's been going on, for as long as motorsports has existed, and it seems like every single time this happens, we're just horrified. Oh my God, I can't believe somebody wrote a check to get in a car. But what do you think about it?
It's the most overblown thing that people talk about, and the reason is because I remember in the 80s and 90s, people bringing motors was currency. Okay, and now it's just a cash. So, you know what? I wonder how these people would feel if that didn't happen and the car goes away. And then we're going to be complaining about fields. Mm-hmm. So I used to be like you too. I hated it because I thought a guy over here maybe was a little better. But the reality is, and there's a back thing to this too, which I'll get to in a minute. But, it's going to happen. If it keeps a car on the track, I'm okay with it. It's been done since I first saw a sprint car race in 1984. And since I've been going to races in 1977. So, I mean, what are we talking about here? And if it keeps a team in existence, I'm good with it. If it keeps a team on the road, I'm good with it. I used to be like you and didn't like it, but now I just know it's part of the game. Mm-hmm. If you're good, and here's the other thing about this. And this has been on Facebook since I put out that 90 at 9 Thursday about void of young talent in PA, which, by the way, I forgot Cameron Smith. I like Cameron Smith, so I apologize for that. But money does not equal success. If I have $300,000, I'm not going to go win an outlaw race just because.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to go to Williams Grove tomorrow. Well, it's winter, but in March, and here's $300,000 and I'm going to win. There are variables. Just because I know a lot of guys who have a lot of money, who spend a lot of money, and they don't win anything. So just because it helps to have resources, it helps to have money, but it doesn't mean you're going to be successful. That's it. There's other variables that go into it. It's crew, it's owner, it's how the teams run, it's situational, it's talent. There are a lot of variables that go into it. Money helps, not saying it doesn't, but it's not the overwhelmingly determining factor. If you're good, you will get noticed. Buddy Kofoid did not have money. He did not buy his ride at Keith Kunz. So now not everybody's going to be him, but look, it helps. It's a big part of it, yes, but there's other variables.
Yeah. The last thing I want to ask you about, kind of the current state of dirt racing media. Obviously, me and you are kind of some of the few who have created a business out of this. And I don't know why more people don't see what the two of us have done and kind of go this direction. But, you have obviously been in very traditional media roles and at the newspaper and then transitioned into your own thing. When you look around and you see the various podcasts and the YouTube channels and the websites and things that exist right now, what do you think about all of it? Could it be better? Do you think we're going in a good direction? Do you think it's going in a poor direction? Like, what do you think about just the current state of dirt racing media?
This might be the hardest question you asked me. Biggest curmudgeon question too. I don't like it. I think people, and I'm not going to be careful now with it, but people think you could just throw up something and everybody can do it. That bothers me. And it bothers me because I spent years working on it at the newspaper and whatnot. Here's what I will say. I like that people are willing to go to YouTube. I like that people are willing to think outside the box. I think those are all good things that people are embracing. What I don't like is they don't work on their craft. And there's, like, when I go to Williams Grove, or I even go to Port Royal, say when High Limits there for the Tuscarora 50. 2 guys there? Really? That's it? If I go to an Eagles game, 100? That's a concern for me. And tracks and series make it more difficult to cover these events as opposed to what they did. So that doesn't help. I'm concerned that it's so niche that people don't want to get in and learn. They don't want to get in and learn how to write. They don't want to come in and call you. Because, I've called you about some YouTube stuff. We've had conversations. Hey, what do you think of this or that? I don't know why other people aren't calling you to see. I mean, Jesus, look at your numbers. That's enough to choke a pig. I mean, come on. You're doing very well with it. You do a good job with it. You put in the work. I don't think people understand how much work it is to make it a good show. I think they need to work on their craft. I think they need to be critical of themselves. You've heard me. I'm critical of myself all the time. I do not like where media is going because it's just people not putting in as much work. They think it's easy. Everybody's going to jump on, and then it just kind of hurts the whole thing. I wish people would reach out more. I wish we could grow it, and I want more people involved covering these races.
Same.
I want to be challenged more with getting breaking news. B, I want to make somebody better. Jerry Regal, the late Jerry Regal, who's one of the best, who's my mentor, was a best friend. He's one of the best media guys I've ever been around in racing. He's passed on, but he helped me. So I want to help other people be better at it. Joseph Terrell's a guy that does a good job for me on the West Coast. I try and help him as much as possible. So yeah, I'm really fearful of the numbers because there's just a lack of numbers. And again, putting something up every day, just being regimented with it. You know that. You do it every day. People know where to go. That's why the numbers are higher. So I just cringe because of how much effort they put in, don't put a lot of effort into it, and just the numbers. But there's a lot of technology out there, and I do like that they're at least using it. So it's kind of a loaded thing for me.
Yeah. I know you consume just a lot of other sports media, just like I do as well. You know, the different podcasts and the TV shows. When you look at those other sports, do you see things with those other sports that you wish we were doing on this side?
Absolutely. I mean, just here, here's a good one, like the NFL Writers Association. If somebody, I know some violations by people who write for prominent motorsports publications, violate the basic rules of journalism. Some of the worst things you could do, and they don't answer to anyone. You answer to somebody in those other sports. And I know I'm not a union guy, but there are some purposes to it, and have organizations. I'd like to see a national organization for dirt track media. Late model sprint cars together, they could be set, doesn't matter. We have the Eastern Motorsports Press Association, and while I was a member of it, now I'm not a member of it. There's some things I just don't fundamentally agree with from my journalism background, and they serve no purpose. They're not active during the year. I just think I wish there was an active organization, like I know there is in those other sports, and there's standards. Not that everybody always follows those standards in these other sports, but I think we need something like that. Much like I think sprint car racing needs a governing body in the United States, like Australia does. So, I'm not a big group guy, but in some regards, they're good. And I think I would like to see that come over from the other sports into dirt track racing specifically. Just an organization people can be proud to be a part of. It sets a standard. It would help these tracks shorten up their media lists. They look like the gross national debt. I mean, you have 500 photographers. There's only 4 corners. Think of the money you're throwing away. And these tracks are struggling. So again, standards. And like, I'll tell you right now, Eagles game, when I covered the Eagles, we had to prove, and we were the 3rd largest publication in the state of Pennsylvania. We had to prove ourselves to get into an Eagles game. And racetracks, you just send something, you just go in, you have a Facebook page. No. And that's where a national organization or even a local organization in, say, Central PA and would help. And that's what I wish they would take over from the other sports.
Yeah. Give me the plug. Where can we find you? You know, the website, social media stuff, YouTube channel. Like, give me the whole rundown on Sprint Car Unlimited.
Well, we have the website, obviously, SprintCarUnlimited.com. Daily news. Miss a couple days here and there, obviously. Sometimes I double up, but we have roughly 450, 500 posts a year. It's right now we're running a special through January 3rd. It's $28 for a year. It's $30 for 6 months. That's just the regular price, and then $18 for 3. It'll go back to $35 after January 3rd, but I think it's a good deal. We have a weekly podcast. Ryan Hand does a great job with me. We have breaking news, everything there. We have the YouTube channel, which is going really well. It's the 90 at 9, 5 days a week. I need to somehow get in front of you on Sundays. You screwed me there, but I have Friday on you.
Yeah.
But no, it's all good. So we have that. We have the deep dive Thursday. I'm thinking about bringing out another show next year, but the YouTube stuff's going really well. And then, of course, we have SprintCarUnlimited.tv. We have pay-per-views from BAPS. We have 4 Speed Week shows. But definitely the content side, SprintCarUnlimited.com. Check it out. We try and get as much as possible. And then, obviously, also Joseph Terrell on the West Coast writes for us. Might add another guy this year. And, check out the YouTube channel.
Who's you had on the deep dive here lately? Who could people go check out?
We had Rich Farmer. Tyler Swank is always fun.
Always good with Tyler.
We're actually going to have a Christmas show on SprintCarUnlimited.com, and I'll put that out for free. We're going to talk marriage counseling, I think, because look, if anybody who should do a podcast and would be a great personality, Tyler Swank is it. So,
no filter on Tyler.
No. And he's just funny. Minnesota Vikings fan too, so you got to get on him. He's all happy, yelling "skull"
Yeah,
into the
they're winning right now.
yeah, no doubt. Sam Darnold, who would have thought?
Yeah.
But so so we had him on, Scott Gobrecht, Lance DeWeese with a tremendous deep dive in November that it kept going and going. I'd like to cut him off at an hour. It kept going. It was an hour and 45 minutes, and it's one of my highest ones. Lance is great to talk to. A lot of good insight on rules and how things should be. So just a lot of good guys on the deep dive. I have Kenny Brown coming up. He's my next one. I'm going to put that out later today. So the deep dive's going really, really, really well. Very happy with it. We're going to try and add some stuff next year again, and it's all good.
I love it. Well, Jeremy, thank you for the time today, sir. I appreciate it.
My pleasure being on the show. Thank you for everything you do. I know you've promoted some things of mine.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one of the things too that with the media thing that you do that people could learn from is giving credit. When somebody breaks news and it's not yours, you give them credit, whether it's writing or verbally in a video. So I appreciate that, and you kind of have some ethics that other people I wish maybe took notice. And you're not even professionally I don't think you have a journalism degree, do you?
Nope.
Yeah, well, I don't either, but I learned at a newspaper. So I appreciate that. I appreciate what you do, and thank you for having me on.